Our grief can bring us to tears. Our memories tie us to the past. Our connections make us feel alive. So many waters sustain life here in Huchiyun, the East Bay. In our part of the bay's watershed, we make our home among the living waters of Cordonices Creek, named for the quails that once thrived along its banks. Temescal Creek, whose name echoes the ancient practice of healing in sweat lodges, and Cerrito Creek, once lined by willows, later the dividing line between two counties. There's also Marin Creek, Blackberry Creek, Village Creek, Schoolhouse Creek, Lincoln Creek, Village Creek, Wildcat Creek, Strawberry Creek. Almost all of them once sustained the Ohlone people. Now they mostly flow underneath our feet, paved over and diverted to make way for homes and businesses and schools. Strawberry Creek runs underground about half a block from my house in Berkeley. Across the street from where I live, there's a park where both the creek and Bay Area history are slowly being daylighted. Several years ago, the city created a swale to push rainwater into the creek. And on rainy days, you can hear faintly the water burbling. Next to the swale, the city put up a plaque about the neighborhood's history. The Ohlone people hunted and fished here for thousands of years, the plaque says, until Spanish explorers overran the land. Then the corner became Rancho San Antonio until American settlers took possession. Gradually, the creek itself disappeared, diverted to make way for a railway and housing. The neighborhood became a hub for Irish-American life in the Bay Area until Cal bought the land for student and faculty housing. And on, and on, and on, and on. If you squint just the right way at that corner, you can see double: the tangible now and the shadow of what once was. That's probably true for your neighborhood too. Hints of long ago Ohlone communities peek out from a row of stores and restaurants. Saplings turned to mighty redwoods. Marshland becomes a garbage dump, becomes a sports complex. The landscape all around us has been destroyed, rebuilt, transformed. There's a pop song about this. I can't sing it all, but it goes something like, "Hey ho, where'd you go, Ohio?" Okay, good. In it, Chrissie Hynde, who's the lead singer of the 1980s rock group The Pretenders, recounts how it felt to go back to Ohio and find that her city was gone. As she says, all the places she loved had been reduced to parking spaces. Her childhood memories swirled past like wind through the trees. Her city existed only in her mind. All of us know what that feels like. We long to see places that have disappeared. Perhaps even more, we long to see people who are gone. We long to hear their voices, hold their hands, listen to their stories. We miss them so much. Yet we know that our beloveds are with us always. It is no surprise when 2 or even 20 years later, our hearts constrict when we smell the perfume our mother wore. When we rest on that bench in Tilden that our best friend showed us. when we taste cornbread made like grandma's, when we hear the jazz song our grandfather loved to play. We pass on stories about aunties and uncles who died long before we were born. We rave about teachers who inspired us. We celebrate the arduous journeys of distant generations. Poet May Sarton writes that the dead move through all of us still glowing. Grief flows like an underground river through our lives, and that grief links us to the past and to each other in profound ways. Glowing. Over and over we get reminders. We are not alone. We are never alone. An endless river of ancestors supports us, flows beneath us, invisible, but always there. And those memories, that longing for connection reminds us that we're alive. Now, I want to acknowledge that sometimes those waters can be rough. Not all of us admire our ancestors or love our immediate families. My mother went on a genealogy kick when I was a kid. This was before the internet, before personal computers. I'm really not sure how she did it. But she created detailed charts full of names and dates and places, and she even found a few stories. I loved those charts when I was a kid for their ever-expanding branches into the past. I picked out evocative names: Ruby Hazel, J.D. Pearl, the multiple Lafayettes that ran through the generations. I wondered why families moved from Virginia to Tennessee to Mississippi. When my mom started her research, I was hoping for a famous relative. Didn't happen. My family doesn't have a single prominent relative. No one made it big. No one made it medium. According to my mom's research, one great-great-grandfather's claim to fame was being arrested for selling moonshine and then busting out of jail. A different, distant relative served in the Confederate Army. My mother wrote, "He went in as a private, and he came out as a private." I learned that one of my great-grandmothers dipped snuff, which just sounds gross, and was mean as a witch's teat. As a kid, I didn't know what that meant, but it sounded bad. And much worse, much worse, was the story of my great-great-grandfather who turned out to be a leader of his hometown Ku Klux Klan. Family lore says that a Klan member put a white rose on the casket to give the secret away. So I learned at an early age I descended from a long line of rogues and ne'er-do-wells, mean women, and racists. White people who arrived from England and Scotland to the Virginia coast. They gradually moved south and west until they got to the middle of Texas. Hot, humid, flat Texas, and they decided, this is perfect. This is where we want to be. If you have ever been to Central Texas, you would wonder at their decision-making. These are my people, my ancestors, my river. Learning about my family tree meant I had to grapple with the unsavory parts of my ancestry from an early age. I admire my ancestors' determination to carry on through hardships, but I'm not proud of many of them. Still, I need to acknowledge them as my people, as part of how I came to be. So we carry our histories with us. I know that today, I cherish those genealogical charts written in my mom's loop-de-loo handwriting. I know that we all inherit our ancestors' genetic code, their verbal tics, their unfinished business, their trauma, their hopes. Not all of our kin lived into their best selves or set good examples. Sometimes people in our own families treated us badly, hurt us, made us feel unimportant. We carry those histories as wounds, an inheritance of sorrow and pain that we need to acknowledge and work through. But maybe not my family, but for many of us, just as equally and often, our ancestors' stories lift us up, inspire us, push us on. Novelist Alice Walker says that to acknowledge our ancestors means we are aware that we did not make ourselves, that the line stretches all the way back, perhaps to God or gods. We did not make ourselves. We are tied to forces and people and the events that flow into our lives in ever-growing streams. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. That's a powerful thought. And for many indigenous people, the breath of ancestors means not just people, but also the entire physical world. The Spirit of God sweeps through people and places equally, binding them together, making every living thing holy. Because of these beliefs, a Honduran activist named Berta Cáceres led a movement to stop a hydroelectric dam on the Gualcarcar River, a sacred site for her Linca people. For Cáceres, like many indigenous people, protecting water rights meant protecting her community, her sense of the holy, the environment. Cáceres and the Linca people believe that female spirits inhabit the river, guard the river. The river is alive. What would it be like if we believed that too? Cáceres said, when we started the fight for Rio Blanco, I would go into the river and I could feel what the river was telling me. I knew it was going to be difficult. But I also knew that we were going to triumph because the river told me so. The river called out to Cáceres for protection, and she answered the call. For over a year, the Linca people maintained a human blockade to prevent trucks from entering the construction site for the hydroelectric dam. Cáceres and her compatriots stood in the river because they believed the river is part of their sacred lineage. We've heard this story before. Heartbreakingly, Berta Cáceres was murdered in her home near that river, a murder ordered by those with economic interests in the dam. But Berta Cáceres' spirit guards the river still. Her daughter and others continue the Linca fight, and the dam was never built. When I think about Berta Cáceres and the horrors pushing Hondurans to flee their homes, I try to remember that right now is just a tiny moment in an endless river of time. That the spirits in the river join us to those who came before and those who will come after. The struggle for a more just world started long before we were born. It will continue long after we're gone. And so, friends, we wade in a river extending through time. So thinking of ourselves as a part of that transforms time and memory and grief into something holy. Sometimes balance eludes us. So much has been lost. We feel overwhelmed, like we're standing in a raging river of longing and we might drown in grief. That's okay. That's okay. There are people nearby who will help us to the shallows, who will rest with us on the shore. Sorrow awaits us when we long for the past, but so does love. When we immerse ourselves in that great river, supported by people and places we have loved, we can navigate wild rapids with skill and grace. That bond is waiting for us. We can launch ourselves into the endless stream, feel the rivers of memory push against our legs, our chests. We can dive under, break the surface, repeat the cycle again and again, because we move in holy space when we remember that community of love. Our memories tie us to the past. Our grief can bring us to tears. Our connections make us feel alive. So this great gift is ours. May it be so. Amen.